Hello, goal-inspired career professionals. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Career Advancement Show. And if you are here, guys, and you're watching live, I'd like you to put live. And if you are watching on the replay, I would like you to put hashtag replay while I'm waiting for Dr. Tam to come in. So thank you, guys. Thank you for coming into this show. So are you hearing me? If you're hearing me, let me know. Are you hearing me? Hey, Michael, are you hearing me, guys? Yes? Okay, so tonight we are going to be having Dr. Tam, Jonathan Tam, and I'm just going to highlight something in the stream right here to tell you about Dr. Tam. I'm still waiting for him to arrive. And he's a career coach, and he helps mid to senior level leaders gain clarity and raise their executive presence to take their careers to the next level. So I'm waiting for him to arrive. So while we wait for him to arrive, we just want to let you know that. So let me just talk about some of the people who are here. Jay is here. Nasir is here. Hi, Nasir. Thanks for coming. Michael is here. And we have some other people coming in here from LinkedIn. Okay. And our LinkedIn user, Michael, is here. So we're going to talk about, and I'm going to ask you to be very interactive today, guys, so that we can make use of today, ask all the questions that we have to ask today. So that would be great. So as you know what I do, those who are here, those who do not know, somebody's here from Portland, Oregon. Happy to see you from Portland, Oregon. LinkedIn user. Dr. Renee is here. Markeith is here. So we're just happy, the guys, that you are able to come on to this live show today. So I'm still waiting on Dr. Tam to arrive. If you just give me a minute, let me just ping him here to make sure that he's properly pinged into the show. Okay, so all right. So let me just get in here. Dr. Tam tells me he's waiting on the link, which I did send him today. So I'm gonna send it again. So just give me 1 minute here, guys. Well, I sent that link this morning, so I just have to grab another link in StreamYard. Just be patient with me. Invite, copy my link. All right, so he has the link now. I screwed up. I didn't send him the link. That's very wonderful. So that's how you do when you start before you're ready. Dr. Tam will be here in a minute. So guys, get your questions ready, because Dr. Tam will answer all the questions about how to change your career successfully. And that's going to be a great thing, okay? Because sometimes, and I have some questions for him too. And Dr. Tam was, he went to the University of Oxford in England. I can't even walk into that door, I don't think. So he went to the University of Oxford, and then he decided that he was going to be a career coach, and he started his business a few years ago. So that's great. So he knows how to career pivot. So as Dr. Tam comes in, I have to apologize to him because I didn't send him the link. So I'm going to add him to the stream. So we're going to welcome Dr. Jon Tam, everybody. Just show him some love here. Dr. Tam is in the house. Are you seeing Dr. Tam? As I said, he is, Dr. Tam went to Oxford. And as I said, I probably couldn't walk through the door, right? So a great guy coming in today. So welcome, Dr. Tam. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Yvonne. Thanks for having me.
My mic is on.
Now it's on. Now it's on.
Okay, all right. I tell you about Yvonne who starts before she is ready, guys, so you can see that you can make mistakes, okay? Because we are not all pro at this, and we are all career professionals, but it's at the end of the day we are going to deliver. So I'm so happy to have Dr. Tam here right now, and so he's going to answer all your questions. So Dr. Tam, just you take it away and just tell them everything you know about how to change careers successfully, because you have done that. You have worked with a lot of people who have done that. And we want to know, if you're in a job, should you just sit down there, continue with the job and wait when is the right moment, to career pivot? So just take it away. This is a free for all day. We're going to have a lot of questions here.
Yeah. So, just let me give you a quick framework in terms of what I believe is one of the best approaches that anyone can really take in their career transition. So first off, I think we need to start with number one, clarity. If you have no idea where you're going, it's just like Alice in Wonderland. When she's when she first landed in Wonderland, she bumped into the Cheshire Cat. The Cheshire Cat asked her, "Hey, where do you want to go?" And then Alice is like, "I don't know." And then the Cheshire Cat replied, "Then any road will take you there." And really, that's one of the main things about career, that you really need to have that clarity to know where it is that you want to go. What's the destination? If you don't have a destination, the best thing that, so when you're on a road trip on a highway and you have no idea where you want to go, the best thing you need to do, the best that you can do, is to pull aside and find where you're going. Am I getting sound?
Yeah, I'm hearing Dr. Tam. So is everybody getting sound? Somebody said there was no sound. Are you getting sound, guys? Keep going, Dr. Tam.
Yeah. Okay.
I can hear you, so I think
you can hear me, and I can hear you now. So I think you fell off earlier in terms of the audio.
Okay, all right, good.
Yeah, maybe that was a slight delay on that.
Okay.
So, cool. Anyways, the whole idea is, if you are on the freeway and you don't know where you're going, best thing to do is pull aside at a stop and figure out where it is that you're going. Because if you are in the middle of a transition, and this is one thing that a lot of people struggle with, it's like, I'm trying to make a transition. I know I don't like where I am, right? So that's obvious, because your body tells you that you don't feel energetic, you don't feel motivated, you feel down, and that just sucks. But we know that. But where do you want to go next, right? So get that clarity, have a destination in mind. After you set that destination in mind, the next piece that you really need to do is to find out, hey, how does this, how do I get there, right? And what is the nature of the job? So, for example, one important piece about clarity is personality alignment, or in psychology we call it personality congruence. So, is what job is the job that you have in mind something that's a good fit for your personality. And oftentimes what we're going to find is that if you are an introvert and you find yourself in a position that requires you to perform a lot of extroverted tasks, it makes it very difficult. And that's not to say that introverts can't do extroverted tasks, but it just makes it very difficult. And it takes a lot more energy, and you probably have to build a lot of soft skills. So here's what typically would happen in someone's career, right? When they first get started, you probably start out as in a junior level, and then perhaps you work your way into an individual contributor role. But as you progress, what happens is that you have to start managing people. And managing people versus being an individual contributor is fundamentally a different task. And some people are very happy being specialists in their specialist role and doing what they need to do. But once you add people in, and once you got to manage people, and that all the whole communication bit, performance reviews, giving feedback, and looking over people's work, all this stuff doesn't exactly spark joy for some people. And over time, what they realize is that they end up in a position which simply makes them unhappy and dissatisfied. And that's a lot of times that's one reason why people are leaving their jobs. It's like, hey, I don't like what I'm doing anymore. The nature of it's changed. As you progress through the corporate ladder, the fundamentals of that job has changed, and it's no longer a good fit for your personality. Or perhaps, sometimes there are people, there's always the toxic people that perhaps, the government, not the government, the job environment changes. Some toxic people come in, start running the place, and you're just like, it's time to move on, right? And so, sometimes it's the nature of the job changing. Sometimes it's the environment changing. We got to sort out what that is and have that clarity. Do you really need a career change? Or do you need just a job change, an environment change? Are you burnt out and you just need a break? Or is it really, a career change that you're looking for, right? And so we'll get that clarity bit. Understand your personality. Understand where it is that you want to go. And then afterwards, you explore what else is out there. What is it that I want? And what I would highly recommend for people to do is to make a list of non-negotiables, right? Whatever non-negotiables for your job, 3 to 5. You don't need to have a very long list. 3 to 5 of non-negotiables that you're looking for your next job. And interestingly enough, these 3 to 5 non-negotiables should also be turned into disqualifiers. So what that means is not when you enter a new job, like a lot of people, like we've heard that non-negotiable tip a lot often, right? A lot of people have heard of that. However, what you can do is also turn those non-negotiables into disqualifiers so that there are going to be triggers for you to realize, hey, what are the things that's going to disqualify this job? And it's time to move on. And oftentimes the problem is people overstay their job as well. And, as a result, they hit a career cul-de-sac and they're like, okay, where am I supposed to go next? I have no idea. Well, because you don't have any of those triggers put in place to tell you that it's time to move on. I don't know, Yvonne, what do you think? You've had a long, illustrious career. What do you think?
Yeah, so I had a long, illustrious career for sure, and I've changed careers, but the changes were forced on me. So once I landed, I stayed there and I expanded, right? So my last one with Mindwire in Ottawa, anybody knows, a recruiting firm. I stayed there for 15 years, but I did have a lot of, a lot of things happened along the way that I could have left. Honestly, I just felt that I was at this job to stay. I just felt that there was something why I had to stay there because I loved the job. And I've seen that environment change over a period of time. I just thought that I could stay there and water it and change the culture. Because there were times when it looked like there needed to be a culture change. And that happened for me. So I stayed and watered mine. Mine worked out, and I did actually ended up, I think I'm getting an echo. I don't know if you guys are getting it.
No, you sound great to me.
All right. So because I had to turn off one of my mics. So with mine is different. And I would think that with everybody is different. And I like when you said, Dr. Tam, that you have to do a clarity analysis, and you also have to take a look at, what are my non-negotiables? This company that I worked with, they were very inclusive. I always said in my life, I would never work for a company that, well, I'm running a small business now, but I was kind of not wanting to run with a small business where the owner has the family there and everything. And as an employee and outsider, if something happens, it's your fault, right? Obviously, families stick together. So I have never really wanted to work with a company that was not like a corporate, because I was that was my limiting mindset, right? I did not want to work with a company that if something happens, I'm going to be blamed, or family is going to stick together, or they're going to bring in their friends. So I was not that. So I wanted to stay at this company because it was exclusive. It had an open door policy. I could walk into management. Management was a flat structure. I could walk into my boss's office, my CEO office, and make a suggestion. And that was huge for me. So that was one of the reasons why I stayed with this company, although I've had challenges here along the way. But in the end, it worked out for me. So I'm glad when you told everyone that if you're making a career change, you have to do your analysis, and you have to get the clarity, and you have to decide on, the skills that you're bringing to the table, right? So I don't know if I should just stop and ask, maybe you want to ask the public. I see Robert Berry is here, and I know he's a businessman, and these guys are going to have some questions. I see Gurdeep. Gurdeep is from Toronto, and she's also a career expert. So at this time, guys, would you want to interject? I'm talking to our audience here now. Do you want to interject and ask Jonathan, Dr. John, a question? I call him Dr. John, right?
whatever works, Yvonne.
I have a daughter now. She has a PhD, and I think they work so hard for it. I see she works so hard for hers. I call her Dr. Renee, and she's my daughter. So I call you Dr. John because you guys work hard, man. You guys work hard to get your PhDs. So I admire you guys. So, okay. So anybody has any questions for Dr. Tam around clarity, where you are in your career now? I see some people on LinkedIn trying to make career change. You have a lot of questions.
Yep. And feel free if you guys got any questions, just drop it in, and I'll be glad to stop in and answer whatever questions that you have. I think carrying on, because it seems like there's no questions right now, right?
Right. Keep going.
Okay, so I'll carry on. So after figuring out, getting that clarity, knowing whatever non-negotiables, knowing whatever disqualifiers, and having that internal compass, and all of it does require you to take objective space and time away from where you're at right now. The next piece really is to do the exploration, right? And informational interviews is so important. You can read up everything you want about a certain job description, but until you actually start talking to people to learn about that specific job, it's not going to mean anything, right? And so, for example, you have, Microsoft, UX researcher, right? UX is booming right now. In the last 5-6 years, it's been a huge growth career path, and it's still charting its way. But if you want to look into UX, one of the things is that, there are a lot of different facets of UX, right? And each job has its different requirements. So one of the things that I work with my client is, there's some jobs they post UX research, but what they're actually looking for is kind of UX research, a little bit of CX research, and then also some market research. So it's kind of like a combination hybrid role of all three. But then if you go to a big corporation like Microsoft, where there's UX researchers, and their main role is to just do UX research rather than juggle multiple hats.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's super important. It's the same title, but what you do is so different. So yeah. So getting that clarity in terms of your destination and where is it that you actually want to go, doing those informational interviews to understand what's the culture of that company, so that you don't land. One of the things is you never want to jump out of a frying pan and enter the fire, right? To make a quick and hasty decision for a career change, that's never helpful. I don't know. What do you think, Yvonne?
Yeah, so that is so important. The informational interviews, and a lot of people are on LinkedIn, they're doing their resume and everything. And a lot of times resume is not the only thing, right? You have to be able to reach out to people, as Dr. Tam says, do those informational interviews, because you got to talk to people. And what do you think about? I always tell people, and especially when I was recruiting too, that job titles mean nothing, and I think that is one of the biggest problems with job seekers. They are looking at titles a lot, and they're not looking at the work to be done, the requirements, what you're doing, your responsibilities, and your accomplishments and all that. Because as you said, a job at Microsoft as a UX engineer is different from a job at another company with a UX engineer, right? So I'm going to stop and just talk to Rodney. Has a quick question here, and he wants to say, he's asking, during a career change, should I use my previous experience?
Absolutely. I think, though, there's a key word that's missing in this sentence, and it's relevant experience. And relevancy, you need to sell that on the resume. So, for example, a lot of times, there's a lot of transferable skills. So, a transferable skill would obviously be sales, right? Selling is whether it's selling and meeting those KPIs for sales, meeting those quarterlies for sales. Those are super important. And if you are going to, for example, if you're doing an industry switch, right? So it's not a functional switch. You still want to be in sales, but your career change is an industry switch. Then, doing sales in, for example, if you do sales in a more traditional industry like banking, then you have those numbers, you have those KPIs, you have the relevant experience. But if you move that to high tech, for example, where it's a lot more fast paced, and the whole it's just a different animal, but it's still sales at the end of the day, then that's relevant experience. And so if the previous experience is relevant, then it's easily convertible, then you just make sure those numbers make sense, make them quantifiable, right? Have those quantifiable statistical numbers to actually show on your resume the impact that you're able to deliver. And if you're not able to do it quantitatively, then at least qualitatively, right?
Awesome, absolutely. And I think Gurdeep also, she's a HR person, and she also was helping Rodney out there, that he should leverage previous experience when you're doing a career change. The key is how you leverage it. And Dr. Tam also mentioned that, right? Relevancy, right?
Yeah. You have to answer the so what question. The so what question. You have these numbers, you have these skills, but at the end of the day, you need to answer, so what?
So what?
Like, what does it mean to them? What is the value that you offer, and what's the value that you're bringing to the table? And at the end of the day, if you're not able to answer the so what question, that means you're leaving money on the table for when you negotiate. Because it's like, okay, if we're filling a cog in a machine, it's not a big deal. But if you're able to really highlight, hey, I bring a unique skill set that can solve a specific pain point for your organization, and this is the so what piece, right? So why am I so important? Why me and not other candidates? And if you're able to really sell that so what piece and really address the organizational pain points, because whenever they're hiring, whenever a company's hiring, there are pain points that need to be addressed, whether it's growth, whether it's projects that they can't handle, whether they want to bring some more specialists on board. There's a specific pain point. And that's why in the information interview process, you figure out what those pain points are so that you can position yourself strategically and accordingly to what their needs are. In the interview process, when you check off all those boxes on the resume and they decide to bring you, okay, this person seems like a good person, let's bring him in to have a more, a deeper conversation. And in those conversations, one of the things that a lot of candidates make a mistake about is they're too passive. They don't ask questions. They just sit there and let people ask them a question. And when they ask, hey, do you have any questions for me? And they're like, they'll ask a few perfunctory questions that they find on LinkedIn from influencers or whatnot. But I would say what would actually be really helpful is start the meeting off where you actually ask them, hey, so just so that we have I want to make sure that we make good use of our time, and just so that I know how to steer a conversation, can you tell me a little bit about your organization and why you're hiring for this position?
Wow.
You start that meeting off like that. You know exactly what their pain point is. You'll know exactly what they're hiring for, and then you'll know exactly how to position yourself for the rest of the conversation. But if you don't ask that at the beginning, if you don't show that proactiveness to ask that in the beginning, what's going to happen is you may be steering them down skills that are irrelevant, right? So Ronnie was asking previous experience. Well, what if you steer them, if they're hiring if they have a problem with sales, for example, and they have to do some they have to do some realignment within the whole, like they have to streamline the whole process, right? But all you talk about are your numbers, and you don't talk about how the sales systems that you put into place. Then you're kind of missing the mark, right? Even though it's a sales position, but what they're looking for is different. So you got to really figure that out at the get-go to position yourself accordingly, and then sell them on the so what.
Wonderful. So what? So what? Wow. Now, guys, you have this new one for you here. So what? Right? What can you help them to do? Right? And that is very important. I always tell candidates, every company has a problem to solve. Before you go for an interview, understand the problem that they have to solve, right? Because that is so very important, because nobody's hiring you because they like us. Oh, we are so beautiful and handsome, but they don't hire us because we are beautiful. They don't hire me because I'm a beautiful old lady, right? They're gonna hire me for what I have to bring to the table. So just remember, guys, the reason why you are not getting your resume noticed, and the reason why you're not passing those interviews, you have not properly showed them the so what, how you are going to help them to solve their problems. Okay, everybody has it. So what? Okay, just think about that. You're in a competition, and that is very important. Do I have any more questions here? For I see Dr. Robert has some fire there. He feels that that was a nice light bulb moment, a nice aha moment for us. We have somebody on LinkedIn who says, I will always ask an overview of the role and the problem that they are trying to solve. It's very important. When I used to deal with the consultants, I used to say, until the client explains the project, don't answer any questions. Because a lot of the consultants go on projects, right? And if you don't know what project the client has, how are you going to start answering the questions? So until they explain the job, don't go firing off asking any questions. And if they don't, do what Dr. Tam say. Prepare that before you go to the interview and ask them about, so that we are, that we understand what's going on now, so we don't waste any time. Tell me about the project. Tell me about the role. Let them tell you again, right?
Yeah. And I think you hit a key word there: wasting everyone's time, right? And one of the mistakes that a lot of people make in terms of a career transition is they're looking for a whole bunch of jobs. And so let me give you an example. I work with a lot of PhDs because that's a group that I naturally resonate with. And a common problem that PhDs have is that when they make the transition from academia, from universities into industry, is that, hey, I have a skill set like writing. I write really well. And you can literally, because of that skill, go down so many different routes of work. So you could you can work in communications, you can work in marketing, you can work in UX research, you can work in consulting, you can be a DEI consulting. All of that is basically, you use those skills of verbal communication and written communication. And it also creates a situation of paralysis by analysis. So there are so many different paths that you can take. And I'm using the PhD example because I know there's not a lot of PhDs. We're only about 2% of the global population. Actually, no, in population of the US. But when we're talking about PhDs, that's one of the main problems they face. They don't know exactly what are their options. And then as a result, they go for everything, right? It's kind of this FOMO mentality, the fear of missing out, where they go for so many different pathways and possibilities. And as a result, they just go into this purgatory, this hell of constantly reframing and retargeting their resume. And like Yvonne, you're an expert in resumes. So every time you prepare a resume, you have to pour your heart and soul into it. You have to make sure it's well done, it's well positioned, and you don't want to keep reinventing yourself every time you write that resume. Am I correct on that?
Yeah. So the way I teach it is that we customize the resume for every position. So for the PhDs, if they're going to be looking for every job in the world because they have a PhD, then they're going to be writing a lot of resumes, right?
Yeah.
Because when you have your prospecting resume, it should only need certain amount of tweaks to get to the targeted role, right? But I see a lot of PhDs on LinkedIn, and that's why I put in the notes there, any PhDs in the house, because I see them on LinkedIn a lot complaining that they're not getting the job and everything. And when I go to their LinkedIn profile, it is wanted.
Yep.
Right. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So what do you think about the LinkedIn profile for people who are career pivoting, Dr. Tam?
Well, and I think that's a great point, because even like the thing with resumes is you're still sending the resume at individual companies, but something like a LinkedIn profile is you only have one. And that's what people will come and click into your LinkedIn profile and look at it. So it doesn't matter if you have a stellar. So, for example, if you're looking to make a career change and you have a stellar career resume where it says that you are a communications specialist. Okay, cool. Someone clicks in your LinkedIn profile and then sees that you're in marketing, right? And you're not exactly communications.
Right.
It will automatically throw question marks into, wait, what is this resume that we just read? And your LinkedIn profile says marketing. So how do we get over that? So I'm not saying that's an insurmountable hurdle, but it's going to introduce a lot more questions. And you don't want that, especially at the early stages, right? The later stages of the interviews, it's about filtering everything and really understanding the candidate and understanding each other's positionality. But at the beginning, you don't want to introduce these questions.
Right. So here what I think about the LinkedIn profile, because when I was a recruiter, we used to have the recruiter board, which is almost like a database behind an ATS behind LinkedIn, right?
Yep.
What happens is that it is SEO optimized. And what I find that most people who are putting their, what I call the prospecting resume on LinkedIn, because it's not targeted yet, it's just prospecting, right? What I find with a lot of people who are putting their prospecting resume on LinkedIn, I saw some today because I was looking at some people who are open to work. And then when I found they had titles that saying that they were something different, totally complete 100% different from the jobs they've done. Now, what happens is that us as hiring managers, we are going to look for somebody. If your job is not, if your requirements, if the things that you say you have done doesn't line up with the job that you are looking for, then we're not going to call you, because there are so many people on LinkedIn you can call. So those profiles are not standing out. And I was wondering, why are these people on LinkedIn complaining? I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, right? So,
yeah.
So I'm like, why are they complaining? And they have not done everything that they can do to get noticed, right? So, and also a lot of the PhDs too, like it's like they're so timid in putting the information out there so that you get noticed. Even if you're reaching out to somebody and to talk about a job, you still have to show up in the marketplace on LinkedIn, where they're going to review your resume, right? Because if they only want one person and there are 100 people on LinkedIn, why would they stop at your profile to call you? Because hiring managers and recruiters are very busy. Honestly, when I recruited, sometimes at 11 o'clock at night, I was emailing people.
Yeah.
So you think recruiters are not, they're busy. They're really busy. And I see they get a lot of bashing on LinkedIn, but these guys are really busy all the time, 100%. And they are not so worried about you, the job seeker who's wanting that one job, because they're not going to call you to clarify anything. They're just going to go to LinkedIn to find the best person. That's it. 100%.
Exactly. So that's why you really need to have that clarity. Figure out where it is that you want to go. Figure out what is the target job that you have, It kind of like, and I call this a target job avatar, right? What's the avatar of the job, the typical profile, and then that's where you do the tweaks, right? You kind of have a master resume. You have the resume that you submit to that specific company. You have a master resume, so you don't have to rewrite the stuff all the time. And so the master resume could be like 5 pages long. You just copy and paste the sections that are relevant to the job at hand. And then afterwards, you use that as your tweaks to submit to that. But if you are in a position where you have no clarity on where you want to go, your resume, you're going to have submitting like resumes where you're a marketer, you're also in copywriting, you're also in communications, you're also in whatever. And when someone clicks your LinkedIn profile, you can't hide at that point.
No, you can't hide.
And that just becomes, people will just be like, okay, next person, right? This person is trying to do a career switch. They may have hired a resume writer. They may have hired, or they may have gone on jobscan.co and scanned the keywords, did that, or maybe did the whole white font thing, which is a terrible idea. But essentially, they just look at your profile. They'll be able to tell whether you're someone they want to bring on board or not. And that's why having that clarity and then being able to sell that idea. And because here's another thing: if you don't have that clarity in the interview, you will not come across convincing. You will not come across confident because you are lying. You are like inside there is that imposter syndrome that will rear its ugly head. And that's why you have to have that internal clarity. Whether you're in business, whether you're in consulting, whether you're doing your own thing, whether you're working corporate, you need to have that clarity.
Right.
What do you think, Jon?
Right. Starts with clarity, guys. I have it up on the wall there. Clarity is key. So if you didn't take anything away from this one, guys, you're going to know that clarity is key, right? And there are some nuggets here for you to walk away with too. You gotta have the so what. Everybody's doing the same thing. Everybody can do the job. But what is in it for me? What have you done lately, according to that ad that they used to have? So what, right? So it is very important. I mean, Dr. Tam there are 2 generations meeting here today, okay? Dr. Tam could be my son, right? There's a boomer and there's a millennial, okay? So what does that mean? We are saying the same things. One of the reasons why I reached out to Dr. Tam, and even when I was at Mindwire, I talked to him on LinkedIn because I was very impressed with his work. I was very impressed with what I saw he had on YouTube. And I felt, okay, we are like-minded. The way he thinks as a young man is the way I think as an older lady. And I'm like, this is a very wise guy. Like some people are just wise beyond their years. So I thought Dr. Tam was wise beyond his years. And when you check it out, guys, you see that he is saying the same things as I am saying. So if you're looking for a job, clarity is important. You got to know where you want to go before you try to get there. And I find that a lot of job seekers, and I've been working with a few people, and when I start the interaction or the conversations, what kind of job are you looking for? I don't know.
Yep.
How many resumes have you sent out? 50.
Yep. I've heard 300, 400, 500.
Oh, wow. I haven't met anybody who have sent out 300 yet, but that is kind of crazy.
Well, I've been talking to PhDs, right? So that's why.
Yes.
There's a lot of empathy towards them.
Yeah.
But they work really hard, but sometimes the fundamental strategy is just broken. Yeah,
that's true. So if you are a PhD in here and in this group, like Dr. Tam has a PhD. I remember when my daughter was looking for a job, I was a little bit nervous too, like 2.5 years or so ago. I was nervous because she had a PhD and I just couldn't figure out what is she going to do? Because a medical doctor, you can say, okay, I'm going to be a medical doctor. But when you have a PhD, you did a lot of research in different fields, in science and all that. What are you going to do? But
we're not that kind of doctor, right?
Well, I'm not that kind of doctor, but PhDs are more learned than a medical doctor. So what happened is that she found a job in 3 weeks. Clarity is key. She knew what she wanted. So we have Aldo here. No, have no fear. Aldo is here. So, Aldo, do you have a question? I understand that from LinkedIn today. I'm watching you, Aldo. I'm watching you. And I saw that you are looking to career pivot. So, what is your biggest? We should have a question from Aldo. Aldo is coming in from New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a question for us about your career pivot? Because I think you want to pivot. We'll answer them right here, give you some clarity, right? First of all, you should know the job that you want, the job that you're looking for. You should be clear on the job that you're looking for, right? So do we have any more questions here for Dr. Tam? And Dr. Tam, you can continue.
So I think you're right. One of the things that a lot of people get hung up on is the tactics, right? How many, should I have adverbs in my resume? I saw that today, right? Should you always begin with a verb first? Is an objective statement outdated, or should I be using a summary? How should I write down my skills? How should I XYZ? It's like at the end of the day, when you look at all these things, you're just wondering, okay, but what kind of job do you want first? And if you're not able to even answer that question, it doesn't matter what tactics you have. It doesn't, and so that's why the internal clarity is key, but you got to have that clarity in terms of finding and having those informational interviews to know, hey, what's the problem that I'm solving? Is this a workplace culture that I want? One client that I work with, she has zero problems with the nature of the work. What we're finding, after working on clarity and after working on a few sessions on figuring out what kind of work is suited for her, what we found out was it's actually not the type of work that she does. The problem is the culture of the work, which means you need to find a different company, but stay in the same line of work. And having that switch alone may make a world of difference for you already. So that's why we got to say that's why I said at the very beginning, you got to have that internal clarity, that distinction to figure out what's my personality, what's a good fit for me, what are my skills, what's my past history, what do I feel in flow for? And then at the end of the day, does that place exist? So here's a question.
Yeah.
Dr. Tam, are the PhDs you're speaking to folks that have limited work experience? And yeah, that's a great question. And to be very honest, one of the biggest questions is, does a PhD count as work experience, right? And so you're talking about people who have spent time in grad school. If you're in the UK, maybe 4 years. If you're in the US, maybe up to 9 years. And so one of the problems is how like that those years of experience in academia, does that count for work experience? And my friend Chris Catterin, he wrote a book called Leaving Academia, and I highly recommend everyone to check that out. And a shout out to Chris if you're watching. One of the things is that, that book is awesome because he does frame the academic experience as work experience.
I do.
So instead of calling yourself a PhD student, which is honestly somewhat not exactly, it doesn't exactly look very positive on your resume. And when people look at it, they're like, what, you're still a student? You're still taking courses? But it's not true. What you're doing is you're a researcher. So reframe it and call yourself a PhD researcher. That sounds a lot better than a PhD student, because people outside don't understand what a PhD is. So the LinkedIn user is asking, I ask because I'm a PhD student, but I'm doing it in organizational change and development, which is transferable in the project management world. Yeah. So what Chris says in his book is, go get a PMP.
Exactly.
You have your PhD, go get that PMP certification.
100%.
Right? But if you want to do like org change and development, another booming industry right now is DEI. All the HR departments out there are scrambling to get DEI done since 2020. And so if you want to go into DEI with your org change and development, then you can. It's a burgeoning industry. And what you can do then is go and have informational interviews with other DEI folks with a PhD, similar background as you, and figure out, can you pivot there? Do you want to pivot there? And that's pretty much it.
Or if you're in organization change and development, then you're going to get your change management process.
Yep, you can get that as well.
It's a practitioner's certificate, right? And or you're going to want to go into project management, you go get your PMP, especially if you're in Canada. You're coming from overseas and you're in Canada and you're looking to become to do project management and you don't have your PMP, it's almost a non-starter. If you're looking to be a BA and you don't have your CBAP, it's almost a non-starter. And if you're looking for change management and you don't have your ProSci or something like that, it's almost a non-starter. I have another question for you. It looks like a gentleman is coming from Portugal.
Okay.
Information is useful. I'm watching from Portugal, and he'd like to improve his English to do a role in working for teleperformance around to people who speak my native language in Arabic. Many thanks for sharing. Wow.
Yeah. So speak, and I think this is an interesting point, Yvonne. I think you and I can speak to this one since we both come from an immigrant background. You're a first generation immigrant. I'm a second generation immigrant, meaning I was born and raised here. But I am, my PhD is actually looking at a lot of immigrants. So I'm very familiar with the immigrant experience. And one of the biggest hurdles that immigrants have when they first come to Canada or when they first come to North America is understanding several things, right? The technical skills generally is transferable, right? Of course, you do sometimes getting that extra certification would make a huge difference. Exactly. Because it shows that, okay, you have valid certification in North America, right? So get that first if you don't have that. The next hurdle then becomes the people skills, right? The hard skills, you need to account for that. And then afterwards comes the soft skills. At the entry level, the soft skills may not be as important because and when you look at any form of organizational structure, the lower you are, the more important the rote hard skills are. So the narrow hard skills, the rote hard skills, the ones that you have to rinse and repeat. But those are also the ones that are, at the largest threat of being automated away, right? Yes. AI and robotics, they can automate that.
Task-oriented things, yes.
Yeah, and so that's a threat as well, but it's just the nature of the beast. There are other things that you can do. But over time, your soft skills become super important. The higher you climb, the more important your soft skills are, because management needs to know that you can manage people, you can handle people, right? Unless you take the individual contributor route. But then that also depends on, do companies even have individual contributor roles? And usually if you have that, like where you're just a pure specialist, you need to be working at a very large company that can't afford to sustain something like that. 100%.
And I kind of like how you talk about it twice, about when you work with large companies. And I saw something on LinkedIn this week about somebody they were talking about, like there was a job description, and the job description was asking for people who work at smaller companies, and people were criticized. They criticize everything on LinkedIn. The reason why that happens, I've seen it before. Some, especially in the private sector, some organizations might want you to have experience working at a small organization because they want to know if you can fit into a culture where you have to do a multiplicity of things. Mm-hmm. When you work in a large organization, the job is more streamlined. So it's going to be focused on maybe one thing, like at Microsoft or Amazon.
Yeah.
Huge company, they're not a UX designer. Is going to be different from the one who does the wireframes and all that. Is going to be different from the one who does the analysis. And it is so, and the big government, like the government of Canada, is the same thing, right? So that is so very important that people understand all those dynamics of hiring, and when you're looking for a job and when you're applying for a job, and when you see those things. So you don't sweat it, guys. Don't do the negative. That's not going to help your clarity. That's not going to help your mindset, right? You work with what you have, and as Dr. Jon says, have the clarity, right? And some LinkedIn users say EQ is so big deal these days for leadership roles. And another reason why EQ is going to be different is remote work. I know this wasn't for remote work, but for remote work, if you're working remotely, but then you're going to change careers. So it might be that you're going to be able to work remotely now, right?
It depends on the company, right? Yvonne, you just said that.
It depends on the company, but for remote work, the EQ is very important because you're not in the office anymore, and you have to know how to communicate and communicate frequently with people who are distant.
Yeah. And I think EQ obviously is super important. People skills, soft skills. There's so many things that you can call it. But I think one thing, Abdul Haid, I think one thing that is important is, speaking fluent English and getting the language mastery is the very first step in making that and making that transition. Because you do need those soft skills to climb the ranks, not necessarily to break into the industry, but if you want to keep progressing, then you do need to have the soft skills for that, the people skills.
So Abdul Hay would like to make a change, and he's thinking that maybe his English is not 100%. Right. So this was not like a show for that, but you're a very flexible guy. I'm very flexible too. I think we can answer all these career questions. How would he be able to get some, like training?
Well, I think
YouTube channel. I love YouTube.
yeah. I mean, there's obviously you can pick up, watch some YouTube videos to pick up some tips. One of the problems that a lot of people find, that I work with find, and I have a mid-size, not a mid-size, I guess it's a small tuber. I have 3,000 subscribers, not a large following, but enough that people would come and reach out to me on LinkedIn. And when I have conversations with them, it's like one of the biggest struggle that they have is that, yeah, you watch that video, you watch, 1 or 2 videos about clarity, 1 or 2 videos about soft skills, 1 or 2 videos about communication, but afterwards you can't stick to it, right? And that's where coaching comes into play. Because coaching, there is that element of accountability. There's that element of checking in. There's that element of making sure you're on the right path. A lot of times people aren't afraid of hard work. In fact, most people aren't afraid of hard work. Yeah, Rosetta Stone or Babbel, those would be good, and Duolingo as well. But oftentimes people are generally more afraid of, all the hard work in vain, because they're not going to get the return that they put in. And that's what a coach is for. So they're not going to do the work for you, but they're going to make sure you're on track and that you're not going to deviate too far from anything that's really going to make a difference for you. And at the end of the day, I mean, yeah, if you go watch those YouTube videos, you boost those language skills, awesome. But later on, as you go higher, the next thing that comes up is assertiveness, right? Are you able to be assertive and set those boundaries in a Western way? So one of the things that is very interesting, coming from a Chinese background, is we're a high context culture. So, and Canada and the US is what we call a low context culture. A high context culture is there's a lot of things implied in between the lines, where you say something and the other, you don't have to say it directly and the other person kind of understands it. But because Canada and the US is an immigrant nation, so there's a lot of immigrants coming here, it's a low context culture. You can't just say things in between the lines. So you need to say things tactfully in an assertive way that sets the boundaries in a Western way. A lot of immigrants, they make the mistake thinking that, hey, the harder I work, the more people are going to see me, and then I'm going to rise through the ranks. But that actually creates the problem of, yeah, you work hard, they'll see you as a workahorse, they'll want you on their team, but they're not going to promote you.
Wow.
Because, I mean, what do you think, Yvonne? I mean, you've been in this work for so long.
100%. I mean, you got it. Like you've been working for like 50 years now. Listen, before I answer that, low context culture, you said?
Yeah, low context and high context culture.
That one, that's new for me. So let me highlight that, low context culture. So the US and Canada are low context cultures because they have a lot of different, they're like a melting pot. So you have to speak, and it is so true. You have to speak with more clarity, and people think you can get away with certain things. Wow. And the other thing that you said about the workhorse, honestly, it is so true, because if you work in an organization, sometimes you're very good at what you do. I'm telling you, people 100%. I know it personally. They don't want to promote you because you're too good. Yeah. Because especially if you're in sales and you're just a salesperson, and you're just cranking out the dollars for them, and the dollars talk, they're not going to get promoted because your ROI at where you are is too high. If they lose you, you're going to be in trouble. They're going to be in trouble. So the ROI, and I don't even want to say what I was going to say. I might get in trouble right here, but I think that's one of the reasons why I got promoted closer to my retirement than earlier on, because after they're going to lose me anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had to duplicate myself.
Yeah.
Right, because I was kind of a high performer, right? So if they promote me to be management, then the ROI to companies is not as big because they're thinking, oh, she's making so much money for me, or John is making so much money for me. If I lose him, no, I'm not going to be able to get those sales.
Yeah.
But then if you're leaving, you're going to leave anyway, and they're not going to get none. So by the time they decide to promote you, it's going to be when you can duplicate yourself by hiring people, training the people, so that when you're gone, it's missed, but it's not as bad, right? So he has a very good point here, guys. We get a good compliment there. We covered a lot of ground. You two make an excellent team. I knew that from a long time, from I was that Dr. John and I make a great team.
We're on the same page on a lot of things. And
a lot of things.
And I think that the immigrant experience is so true, and what you just said, because at the end of the day, the higher you go in an organization, especially once you hit the C-suite and the executive team, what that means is if they need to let you in to that level, at that point, everyone's hard skills are going to be good. So good to the extent that other people in the team can't really tell the difference between a 9 and a 7.
Yeah.
Right? If you're a 9, they can't tell the difference between a 9 and a 7. Right? They'll just think, at that point, they're just like, do I trust the person? And the thing is, if they let you in, and if you're an ally, then everyone's firing on all cylinders, and it's great because they're giving you the keys to the organization.
Exactly.
But they let you in, and they realize that they can't trust you. And this comes all down to the very basic human psychology and how we evolved, right? On the basic primal instincts of trust. Do you speak with? And I don't want to make people who speak with an accent in a bad position, but at least are you able to connect with them at a human level? Yeah. Right. And
it's more of they understanding you when you communicate. I love accents. So that sometimes people with very thick accents you can't understand, right? So you have to be,
Can they understand you? And then a more primal level to that is, can they trust you, right? Because if they can't understand you, they can't trust you. And so that's oftentimes one of the main struggles that a lot of immigrants face. So the soft skills become really important. Do you know how to work in a Western environment, communicate in a Western way, so that you're able to be okay? And I know, Yvonne, you're from Jamaica, and so you're from the West as well. But from the South.
But you know what, Dr. Tam, even though I'm from Jamaica and I came to Canada and stuff like that, right? And I lived in like Barbados and Grand Cayman, so I kind of have a little bit of multi thing going on with me. But when I came here, like in Canada, the environment, people, I talked about on my show one day. I go to work in the morning and everybody's, oh, what did you do over the weekend? And they were just into your business. And I'm like, why do they want to know my business? That's why they just want to strike up a conversation with you. And it was more like trying to be, it's that know, like, and trust thing.
Yeah.
They want to like you. They want to hear about your personal story. But in Jamaica, we don't tell people our business. We say they are fast, FASS, fast. Why they want to know my business? They just want to get into my business. And Canada, it was so different and when you come from another country, people think you can just come here and get promoted right away. No, it's like you kind of have to understand. The people have to know, like, and trust. And that's what Dr. Tam is talking about. Even when you're looking for a promotion, he's a career clarity, career change guy. I talk about career advancement because I've seen myself advance in my career and all that. But in order to advance, guys, you all are in jobs. And in order to advance, you got to have those soft skills. You got to have people liking you. You got to have people trusting you. It took me a long time to figure out that I got to make these people like me because I was kind of a black and white person. It's either right or wrong. And then I had to realize I have to be a middle of the road approach because in Canada, it's kind of not wrong or right. People like to kind of be in the middle. We have a very...
we're very polite.
Very polite culture here, and nobody wants you to, it's wrong. No, and then I had to learn that over a period of time. So if
Yeah.
I came here, nobody was going to promote me, although I had an MBA coming into Canada and I was well qualified. So that there's a lot to learn for job seekers. And Dr. Tam and I are not just finding people jobs. We are helping you to grow. So that's why he does a lot of career clarity. He helps executives. He helps, everybody, just like, like me, mid-level career professionals and executives to grow in their career, to be clear. So Dr. Tam, unless you have any questions, I want to ask Dr. Tam another question. Somebody said, great tips, Dr. Tam, learning so much. So our audience tonight, I'm so happy to bring Dr. Tam on so that you can learn so much. But Dr. Tam, where can we find you? And guys, you can search for Dr. Tam on LinkedIn, connect with him. He always has good information. He also has a YouTube channel. So where can we find you?
Yeah. So you just said it. It's basically, you can find me, and I give a lot of good advice on YouTube. So just go look up Dr. Jon Tam on YouTube, and you should be able to find me there. And if you're on LinkedIn, I'll be glad to connect with you as well. Also, just look up I don't think I'm Dr. Jon Tam there, but I think I'm just Jon Tam, JONTAM.
Yeah,
and I'm sure if you're watching this on LinkedIn, you can probably just hit up Yvonne and then find me, because we're always in each other's comments.
Yes, and I'm on LinkedIn, as you know, guys. If you're just seeing this live on LinkedIn, and just click on it, connect with me. I respond to everybody who message me. And on YouTube, I'm Goal Inspired Career Coaching. I'm not there by my name. It's called Goal Inspired Career Coaching. I coined that name years ago, so I know I was going to run a business with some kind of goal thing in there.
Yeah, you had clarity.
Honest to God, I have clarity from way back. So listen, we had some real nuggets here today, guys. I even learned a couple things myself. I never know about low context culture. I never heard the terminology before, so I'm glad to hear that terminology. And a lot of things you were told today. So what? You're applying for a job. You must make sure that you tell them what problems you are going to solve. So what, right? And so that they can do something. So we should all know that. And a good tip we got tonight was that if you are going to a job interview and the work is not properly explained, you can start out the interview by saying, so that we understand, so that we keep our focus, or something like that. Could you tell me some more about the position? Don't answer any question in any job interview without knowing about the job first. Right? I have some things coming in here. I like the distinction between high context and low context cultures. That's very nice. And Abdul Haid also, let me welcome you to visit Portugal. Once Dr. Tam to go to Portugal, he probably get there faster than me, because I don't like to travel that much. But yes, so that is so wonderful, guys. If you don't have any more questions for Dr. Tam, I think we are going to go out with a little bit of what I'm all about on my. There you go. Okay, so last week it didn't play this. I'm not hearing anything here, so maybe you hear something. I'm not hearing anything.
I don't hear anything either.
You don't hear anything. It happened to me last week too, and it's happening to you.
Oh, I hear it now.
everybody. Thank you, Dr. Jon Tam. Thank you for
All right,
coming.
my pleasure.
Yes, and I'll see you around LinkedIn tomorrow.
Yeah, see you around.
Okay, thank you very much, guys.